There is a new type of fake NDE content that has been popping up all over YouTube, and thousands of people are taking it seriously. The rise of AI-generated content. Stories that are fake from start to finish. The story is fake, the person telling the story is fake, and people are falling for it. And so what I'm going to do today is I'm going to show you what a couple of these channels look like, what their content looks like, and how you can avoid being hoodwinked by these channels. Hello, my name is Melissa with Love Covered Life Podcast, and typically I interview NDE experiencers, but today we're going to do something a little different. Today I'm going to be doing a reaction video to something that's happening in the NDE space that I think everybody needs to be aware of. There is a new type of fake NDE content that has been popping up all over YouTube, and thousands of people are taking it seriously. Let me backtrack. When I first started interviewing near-death experiencers back in January of 2021, there were only a handful of NDE podcasts in the field, such as NDE Radio, We Don't Die Radio, Buddha at the Gas Pump. NDEs were not a widely accepted phenomenon, and those people who were sharing their stories, you knew they were authentic because they often risked alienating everybody in their life by coming out publicly with their NDE account. Within the first couple of years that I started interviewing near-death experiencers, there were several other podcast hosts who started, generally speaking around the same time that I did. More and more people were starting podcasts interviewing near-death experiencers and spiritual experiencers. And we've seen the benefits of this in society with NDEs becoming more widely recognized and accepted. Now, when I tell people what I do for a living, when people ask me, what do you do? And I say, I'm a podcaster, I interview near-death experiencers, people are interested, they get excited. They either have a personal story to share or somebody that they know has had an NDE or an after-death communication, or they want to hear some of my stories and about the guests that I've interviewed. So we've seen this really positive shift in society. Along with that, of course, comes the downsides. There's positives and negatives to everything. We live in a world of duality, so that's just what you expect. With the NDE space exploding, people started jumping in to find ways to monetize off of it. One of the first things that happened is that people would take my content and those of other podcasts in the niche. They would just record sections of our interviews and paste them together into their own collab and paste it as their own content. There were some channels that grew rapidly, like overnight to like 300,000 subscribers before they got caught and taken down by YouTube. Another thing that's happened, of course, is that now it's not as much of a risk to come out with an NDE story, so people fake it. It's a lot more likely that somebody will make up a story that didn't actually happen so that they can sell a product or one-on-one sessions or whatever it may be. I will say that I still think the majority of people that go on podcasts to share this information are legitimate, because although NDEs are more widely recognized, there's still a risk with family and friends, with being looked at as weird, or people think that you're lying. There's still a risk in people's personal life. But I don't doubt that it does happen. There was a lot of competition that was introduced into the podcasting NDE space, starting probably in about the end of 2022, beginning of 2023. You started to see companies or podcasters with big teams jumping in and skyrocketing their channels overnight. You started to see a lot more variety and creativity and competition in the field, which again comes with its positives and negatives, but it's just part of the process, right? Eventually, probably I would say maybe, these are just ballpark estimates, but in the year 2024, we started to see a lot more AI being used in content. which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But one complaint that a lot of people had was the AI that was being used on thumbnails, podcasters using clickbait titles and thumbnails, because there's all this competition now. And people who were doing well before, just sharing authentic stories, are now starting to struggle to keep up with all these big channels that are jumping in, that have connections and resources and big teams and a lot of money to dump into the project. So if you hear noise, by the way, it's my cats. My cats are always in here when I'm filming, and they like to attack my lights and chew on my cords and climb in my closet and do everything that makes the most noise possible while I'm filming. Anyway, these are all shifts that I've seen. Not positives or negatives, just shifts. But now we are on the precipice of the next shift that is happening in the podcasting NDE space, or maybe just the NDE space in general, and that is the rise of AI-generated content. Stories that are fake from start to finish. The story is fake, the person telling the story is fake, and people are falling for it. And so what I'm going to do today is I'm going to show you what a couple of these channels look like, what their content looks like, and how you can avoid being hoodwinked by these channels, which I don't, not to sound condescending towards people, a lot of people are falling for this. There's thousands of views, hundreds of comments on these videos, and people believe that they're real. And there's a couple of reasons why I think that's just not an ideal situation for people to be believing that this content is real. And it is the first shift that I've seen in the industry where it's like, okay, this isn't cool. Like before, it's friendly competition. It's the realities of what's going to happen when a niche expands. But this is kind of crossing the line, and I think it needs to be called out. And I think people need to be made aware. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you two examples of completely fake AI-generated NDE YouTube channels. We're going to look at some of their videos, and I'm going to point out the ways that you can tell it is fake and the reasons why it's problematic. This is the first fake NDE channel that I'm going to share with you. It's called Hidden Bible Secrets. You can see that it has 10.4K subscribers right now. It is quickly growing because not long ago it had 500 subscribers. Now, if we look through the content here, we can see that it's all coming from more of a Christian lens, fear-based Christian style content, which is the first red flag. Now, no offense to Christians. There are Christians who have had NDEs who I've had on my channel, but the vast majority of NDEs are not Christian-based. If you know what I mean. Like, Jesus may show up and give a message, or a Christian may die and have a hellish experience and then be rescued by Jesus. But the vast majority of NDEs are coming from a non-religious perspective. People from various religions have NDEs. I've had a Buddhist on my channel. There's a well-known NDE-er, Renee Pazaro, who is from the Baha'i faith. You'll talk to Mormons, Jews, Hindus, pretty much any religion you can think of. People have had the NDE, but usually the NDE kind of shifts their perspective and has them coming back with a more open-minded viewpoint. That's not to say that there aren't people out there who have had very Christian-based NDEs. And you can find those on channels such as Randy K's. I still have my suspicions about channels like those. Like, why do you have NDE channels that are only interviewing and promoting NDEs that come from a Christian worldview when it's a very small percentage of that range of NDEs that are out there? Having said that, if you find a channel that is all Christian-based NDEs. I mean, I died and Jesus showed me why staying up late weakens your spirit. I died and Jesus reveals what happens spiritually when couples live together. I died and Jesus told me 7 ways Christians waste their salvation. I died and Jesus showed me why millions are deceived by yoga and meditation. I mean, this channel could have been created by a Christian pastor. You don't see this kind of stuff in real NDE. I mean, this is anecdotal evidence, but I've read and listened to hundreds, if not thousands. I've interviewed so many people at this point, and I've never heard like specific sins like this being called out, like cohabiting before marriage or staying up late. If anything is called out in the life review, if any specific sins, so to speak, are called out, it's always a lack of love. It's always you could have showed more love in this moment. Look how this action of yours made this person feel. So that's the first red flag. So let's take a closer look. Let's click on one of these. Try to find one that has a few more views here. Let's see. How about this one? I died and Jesus revealed the 4 foods Christians must avoid. I just want to take a break for a quick moment to thank you from the bottom of my heart for watching and supporting this channel. I could not put out this content without your support. Just watching and commenting and sharing the videos is huge. But you guys ask me consistently if there's anything else that you can do to show your support financially. And there is a way that you can support the channel and also get huge benefit for yourself. I have a community membership called The Sanctuary, which you can join for as little as $10 a month. I created the Sanctuary because people in the spiritual community tend to be very lonely. Oftentimes people have deconstructed their faith. They've had an NDE or spiritual experience that they're afraid to share with people. And so many of us are looking for that safe space where we can connect with others like us, feel safe to share, and as an added bonus, grow together. And that's exactly what the Sanctuary is designed to be, a safe, supportive space. We have a thriving community. We have courses, mini courses, challenges, meditation soundtracks, and I'm now starting to create energy work infused meditation soundtracks for you to join with me in doing energy work and giving healing to the planet, which is by far my favorite type of content I have ever created in my entire time as a content creator. So join the Sanctuary today to get access to all of my meditations, my new energy work infused meditations, and all the other wonderful resources and people that you will meet in the Sanctuary. Link is in the description box. Thank you for your support. Now back to the show. So let's take a closer look. Let's click on one of these. Try to find one that has a few more views here. Let's see. How about this one? I died and Jesus revealed the 4 foods Christians must avoid.
My name is Daniel, and I grew up in a Christian home where the Bible was read every morning before school.
Okay, first obvious thing to point out is, can you see how robotic this AI voice sounds? And if you watch the man's facial expressions, it's clear that they're not natural. Also notice how there was a small clip of his face and it jumped right to B-roll. For those who aren't familiar, B-roll is when a stock video is put over top of the person speaking. That in and of itself isn't a dead giveaway, but let's look and see what happens in the rest of the video.
My father was a quiet man of prayer, and my mother carried a faith so steady that it became the anchor of our family. I was taught the stories of Noah, Moses, and Jesus from the time I could barely speak. But as I grew older and life became complicated with responsibilities, careers, and ambitions, my devotion became more of a Sunday tradition than a daily walk.
Okay, here's a couple key things to notice. If it sounds like the person in the video is reading off of a script, it is most likely AI-generated content. Real people, when they talk, there are pauses, there are ums and ahs, although a lot of that is edited out by either a really good editor or AI editing technology like Descript, the program that I use. All pauses, ums and ahs can be edited out. However, the person will still have emotion in their voice and it won't sound like they're reading off a script. The language isn't going to be as fancy when it's a real person speaking, and there will be emotion in the voice. So 2 telltale signs of AI content is like a flat reading and when it sounds too formal. Another thing is I'm going to run my mouse along the screen at the bottom of here. Do you see anywhere that the man's face pops up again? It's all B-roll, We see one short clip of him at the beginning, and then he never shows his face again. The reason why this is problematic is two things. On YouTube, personal connection with showing of eye contact and facial expressions and emotions is incredibly important. It's one of the main tools that YouTubers use to get views and interest in their videos. So why are they not showing the person's face? It's YouTube 101 to give eye contact and show facial emotion. The second important point here is that B-roll takes a lot of work. It takes hours to put B-roll on videos. So while a good editor will make use of B-roll to keep the video interesting, they're not going to cover the entire video in B-roll. They're going to flash back and forth to the person talking. They're going to make use of graphics and text and other things as well. Here's a good example of a channel that does use B-roll that is a legitimate channel so that you can see the difference. Okay, the other side NDE, 502,000 subscribers and well-deserved. This is a legitimate channel that has put in the work, done the interviews, created beautiful videos. And let's take a look at one of their videos. How about this most recent one here? I was dragged to hell until this happened.
This enormous fear and terror came across me.
So right away, you can see the use of B-roll. A lot of podcasters use B-roll immediately when the video starts to make it interesting to keep people watching.
Oh, please. And then the next thing I knew, I saw this little teeny tiny light, like a pinpoint of a light. And I started moving towards the light. My name is Christine Harrington. And I want to preface.
Now we can see the face of the person speaking. Let's give it a minute and see what we can gather here.
First, that I am a Catholic. I was born a Catholic. And the reason why I want to preface with that is because it ties in with my near-death experience story. So knowing
we've flashed to B-roll again. Let's see how long this lasts before her face shows again.
That I was born a Catholic, I moved away from the church in the late 70s after my divorce. And to say that I lived pretty promiscuous life is somewhat true. And I'll just say I wasn't living life according to the Catholic Church. So I found myself pregnant. And this was in my early 30s. And the father of the child said, get rid of it. And at the time, my parents were not supportive at all. So I went through my first abortion. Then after I left him, a few years later, I found myself living with a man and I was pregnant again and I had a second abortion. I know.
Here we are. We're a minute and 34 seconds in and we're seeing her face again. This is how a legitimate channel will typically go about using B-roll. Now, if we scroll through here, we've got more B-roll. Jumping back to her face at 4 minutes, and the video jumps back between B-roll and her face. The reason why it's a dead giveaway when you only see one small portion of the person's face at the beginning and then it never shows again is because they have to AI generate that person talking. And that's tricky to do because AI is still learning how to get the right facial expressions, the right voice tone, all of these things. And so they're going to use the AI fake person for as little time as possible on the screen. Will it stay that way for very long with as fast as AI is improving? I don't know, but that's where we're at right now. Now let's finish out, maybe let's jump a little farther along in this video to see what these 4 foods Christians must avoid, like what is the point they're trying to make with this video? And then I'm going to show you some other things to look for when determining if a channel is fake.
Jesus placed his hand on my shoulder. His voice grew both gentle and fierce. Tell them this. Return to what is whole, in food and in faith. Eat what I created in its fullness, grains unrefined, fruits unaltered, foods untouched by greed, and spiritually consume my word, not the traditions of men. In the last days, the bread of idolatry will be the snare of many. They will sit at tables filled with abundance, yet remain empty inside because they fed on what was lifeless. He then quoted the scripture that struck like lightning in my soul. Amos 8:11. The days are coming, declares the sovereign Lord, when I will send a famine through the land, not a famine of food or a thirst for water, but a famine of hearing the words of the Lord. I realized this was the double-edged message. Physical bread was being corrupted and spiritual bread was being counterfeited.
So we can see that this is a really Christian end times type video, kind of a fear-based message being given here, which is pretty untypical for NDE accounts.
Both were starving God's people. The loaf before me turned to ash and scattered in the wind.
I've never heard a real NDE account talk about God's people. This is a dangerous, exclusive ideology that is promoted by some religions, but NDE accounts see all people as divine beings having a human experience.
The four foods were now revealed: blood-contaminated meats, artificially sweetened and chemically altered foods, unclean meats, refined and idolatrous bread.
Okay, so there might be some good dietary advice here. What is idolatrous bread? What is idolatrous bread? This is really, again, fear-cloaked religious ideology that's being promoted.
Vision ceased. His eyes locked onto mine with a weight that seemed to pierce my soul. Daniel, you have seen. You must tell them. These warnings are not optional. They are lifelines. Those who obey will walk in strength, clarity, and holiness. Those who scoff will weaken, and many will fall away when the testing comes.
Again, more religious language. People are going to fall away when the testing comes. This is taken straight from modern day end times Bible prophecy thinking. This is not a type of thinking I've seen in near-death experiences ever. Do NDEs talk about so-called end times events? Yes, in the context of this is what the collective choices of humanity are leading towards. We could be heading for some tumultuous times ahead if humanity doesn't figure out how to be loving and live in peace and harmony in the world, that the collective consequences of our choices could be something we don't want to experience. But there's never this idea of the select few who are following the right path, or some people are going to fall away. There's none of this religious language, this religious fear mongering in it, right? So I think we get the idea. I think this is probably enough of this particular video. Now I'm going to show you a few more things to look for when vetting a channel. So if you scroll down beneath the video and look at the description, there's a couple of things to look for. The first is look for more information on the guest. What is the guest's name? And here you'll see a lot of them do share names, but here we don't even have a name. I died, and in that moment I met Jesus. He revealed to me 4 specific foods that Christians must avoid in the last day. I won't read the whole thing here, but there's no name mentioned, so you can't even look up the guest. Okay, let's pick another video that maybe does have a name so I can walk you through this process. I died and Jesus revealed the shocking truth about cremation. No pastor preaches. Do we have a name here? There's no name. So I might have to go to the other channel that I was going to show you to point out the problems with the description box. This one's really obvious. If there is no information about the guest, it's probably not a real guest. But let's switch over to the other channel that I was going to show you. Here we are on the Second Life YouTube channel. We have a lot more fear-mongering from a Christian perspective here. Teen dies in church shooting and returns with a shocking warning from Jesus. Navy pilot dies and returns with a shocking warning about China. So we're getting politics involved here. I died and Jesus revealed the horrifying truth about American churches. One of the interviews with the most views here was actually about Trump. Here it is. Secret Service agent dies and Jesus reveals Trump's real mission for America. Let's click on this one.
My name's Ethan Hayes. I'm 48 years old. On April 11th, 2024.
So you can kind of see, you can kind of tell just by looking at the face that it's fake. It's not quite right. You know what I mean? It's getting closer to how a human face would behave, but it feels robotic in a way.
While working a security detail in DC, my heart stopped for 22 minutes. I've spent my entire adult life in the Secret Service.
So we saw a short clip of his face, which has very quickly been replaced by B-roll.
It's not a job, it's who you are. You see the world through a lens of threats, angles, exits.
Okay, before we progress, I want to point out the flatness of his voice. It sounds like he is reading off a script.
It's crowds' faces. My mind was trained to calculate risk in a fraction of a second. I protected some of the most powerful people on the planet. I spent my entire adult life in the Secret Service. It's not a job, it's who you are.
It's not a job, it's who you are. It's such a flat, monotone voice. Nobody talks about their job in the Secret Service in a flat, monotone voice like that.
You see the world through a lens of threats, angles, exits, crowds' faces. My mind was trained to calculate risk in a fraction of a second. I protected some of the most powerful people on the planet. I was good at it. I was calm under pressure. I was detached. You have to be. My life was my job, my wife, Lisa, and our daughter, Katie. I'd come home, kiss them both, and try to switch off the part of my brain that was always scanning, always watching.
That was always scanning, always watching. It sounds like he's reading off a script. This is something that somebody might say, but it's not going to sound so formal. Let's look down along the bottom and see if his face ever shows back up. Nope, it's all B-roll, all pictures of AI-generated pictures of Jesus for basically the entire video. If you go on to watch this video, what you'll find is that it is a very political message about Trump being God's chosen instrument. You know, I mean, I've never heard of an NDE being used to promote political figures. The only time I've heard political figures come up in NDE is when people are shown visions of the future and how things may play out. I did hear a legitimate NDEer speak once about how he was shown that Donald Trump would be elected to office before it ever happened. And I heard this interview long before Trump ever ran for president. But that's the most I've ever heard in terms of politics being brought up. Now let's look at the description box on this video, and I'll point out the things that you can look for to see if it is a real person being interviewed. The first thing again is look for a name. Now this channel does give names. Ethan Hayes is supposedly the person here. So copy and paste the name, go to YouTube and type in the person's name, NDE interview. Let's see if anybody has interviewed him, if he's coming up at all. And a quick search reveals there is no Ethan Hayes who has been interviewed on YouTube for an NDE. We can put his name into Google, Ethan Hayes, NDE. Of course, this video here is coming up first. Doctor dies and proves heaven is real, medical evidence. Well, I mean, this has got to be someone else because this one is claiming to be a doctor. Dr. Ethan Hayes, a respected cardiologist. So I bet you anything, this is another AI channel that's reusing a name. And in this video, he's a cardiologist. Yeah, I think we just found another AI channel here, Miracle Messages. So Ethan Hayes is not a real person who has been interviewed by anybody. That in and of itself does not mean that it's not legitimate. Perhaps it's somebody that's sharing their story for the first time. But then, is there any contact info? A lot of times, interviewers will put the contact for their guest in the description. Not all channels do that. But there is one more telltale way to know if a channel is real from the description box. There are real channels that narrate NDE stories for people, where the person never shows their face. There is no contact info for them because they want to remain anonymous. But those legitimate NDE channels will have a way in the description box for people to submit their stories because that's what they base their channel off of, and they need people's real life stories to continue creating content. There is no information about Ethan Hayes here, but there is also no way to contact the channel to be interviewed, to submit a story for narration, nothing. And that is a dead giveaway. Okay, let's look at this new channel we found for a minute here. Nurse dies and Jesus shows her which celebrities will die in 2025. Okay, I mean,
I'm Lisa Marie Peterson.
This video, guys, it has, you would think from the title. I mean, it's kind of a red flag title. Why would Jesus be concerned with showing people which celebrities are going to die? That information is completely irrelevant to anybody's life purpose. But this video has 206,000 1,000 views on it. And let's look at the comments. I love you, Jesus. I felt his love and light as I viewed this video. Thank you. Jesus is more real than anything we can imagine. I mean, how many comments are there? 495 comments. Most people are taking it as truth. Jesus is real. He spoke to me in this video. I believe in Jesus Christ. Although this incredible story is hard to believe in a way, so someone's picking up on something here. The message is very important. Let's take a quick look and see what this video is about.
I'm 48 years old, and this February I died.
See this like speckling happening in the video? I've seen this several times in this AI content.
On a hospital floor for 22 minutes. I've been an oncology nurse for over 20 years at a
Okay, so we see that this channel is using some of the same exact B-roll that the other channels were. I've seen this exact picture of Jesus before.
busy hospital in Charlotte, North Carolina. My life was normal, predictable even. It was my husband, Mark, our teenage son, Josh, and me.
Again, with the flat video, my life was normal, predictable even. Like, that's how people write, not how they talk. It's probably an AI-generated script made to sound like good writing, but it's not natural to how people talk. Let's jump ahead and see if we can see what the point or the main message of this video is.
The clock is ticking for every single person. Tell them to stop chasing the wind. Tell them to stop worshiping idols of flesh and blood who will one day turn to bone. I understood. It wasn't.
I have never in any NDE ever heard Jesus tell people to stop worshiping idols of flesh and blood who will one day turn to bone. This is, again, very religious language, probably constructed from biblical ideas.
About the celebrities at all. It was about us. It was about where we put our hope. A deep
Where we put our hope, again, is a very, very Christian terminology, but not typically heard in legitimate NDE stories.
peace settled over me, a peace I had never known. I was home. This was where I belonged. The thought of going back to the loud, painful, broken world was unbearable. Please, I begged him, the words catching in my throat. Please let me stay. I don't want to go back. I'm so tired. Please, Lord, let me stay here with you. He smiled, but it was a sad smile. He knew my heart. My precious child, your love for your family is a beautiful thing. Mark and Josh still need you. Your work is not finished. He moved closer. There are other patients you must care for, not just their bodies, but their souls. You have seen the truth. Now you must be a beacon of it in a dark place.
So there's definitely some positive aspects to the message being portrayed in this video. It definitely doesn't sound like a legitimate NDE to me. Let's look at the description box. There is no name. It just says a 48-year-old nurse from North Carolina. No way to contact the channel, no way to contact the guest, no way to submit a story. Most definitely an AI-generated channel. Here's one more thing I want to show you before I stop sharing my screen, and this is how a legitimately done narrated NDE channel looks. For this channel called Heaven Awaits with 218K subscribers, they have been around for a while and they do narrate people's stories so you won't see the person speaking come up on the screen. Here's an example of a video.
First new NDE in a long time. This one is really long, clocking in at around 50 minutes. So enjoy. As an infant and a toddler, I was raised by my atheist.
Now you can see that this is probably an AI generated voice that sounds flat and expressionless and robotic. And I mean, who knows? Maybe they have switched over to, I don't know. There's no real way to tell. But this channel, I believe, used to use real human voices to read their content, if I remember correctly. And maybe they've switched to AI voices now. I'd hope to think that this content they're putting out are real stories, but here's what you can look for in the description box. You'll see something like this. If you would like for me to narrate your personal NDE, feel free to email me and then they'll give you the email address. This is one thing that you can look for, is just to see, is there a way to contact the channel? Is there a way to submit your story? Because if they're sharing real stories from real people, then they need a way for people to contact them to keep their channel going. Okay, now I'm going to stop sharing my screen. There's a couple things that I want to point out that I believe are problematic about this type of content. The first one is simply the fact that nowhere in this video or the description is the AI content disclosed. I'm going to read you a quote here about YouTube's disclosure policies for AI generated content. You must disclose AI-generated content if it is altered or synthetic and could mislead viewers, including deepfakes, making a real person appear to say or do something they did not, altered real-world events, changing footage of a real event or place, or synthetic realistic scenes, which is what these AI-generated channels are creating. Creating a realistic-looking scene that did not actually happen, as well as a realistic-looking person that does not exist. These channels are out of compliance with YouTube policy, and if enough people were to report them, they could get shut down, which is something to think about. That's up to you if you choose to report these channels. I do want to say that I've watched a number of the videos. Some of them are really like religious and fear-mongering. Some of them do have positive messages. And Jesus's phrase, if they're not against us, they are for us, comes to mind. If somebody is sharing a positive message that is going to inspire people to be more loving and more forgiving, I'm all for that. However, they need to disclose that they're using AI-generated content. It is unethical to share these stories as real NDE stories when they're not. And so YouTube requires the AI content to be disclosed in the description box. There's actually a little check mark that you have to check. In the back end of YouTube, when you get ready to post your video, if you're using AI-generated content under any of the 3 headings that we just established, these people don't appear to be checking that box. They also honestly should, from an ethical standpoint, be putting it in the video itself at the beginning, letting people know this is an AI-generated story and script in person, right? There's absolutely nothing wrong with using a fictional story to inspire people. Fictional is a powerful medium to use to get a message across and to affect change. But when you're dealing with something like a near-death experience, it needs to be disclosed. My 2 biggest issues with this type of content are as follows. The first one is people who are drawn to NDE content. Typically, they have a fear of death. They have lost a loved one. Some people are just curious, but a lot of people who come to my channel have lost loved ones, or they deal with a crippling fear of death, and they're looking for knowledge about what happens in the afterlife, what's happening to their loved one, what they can expect when they pass on. And I think it's very unethical and irresponsible to be sharing fake stories in this environment of very real people who are hurting, who think that they're watching a real story. If you want to use a fictional NDE account to spread a positive message, that's fine, but be upfront about the fact that it's fictional. I've been reading fictional books this week as an enjoyable hobby, and there's powerful messages and ways that I've grown as a person through reading this fictional story. But you need to let people know that it's fictional, because people are changing their belief systems based on these NDE accounts. They're getting ideas of what's happening to their loved one on the other side. Some of these NDE accounts are going to mislead people into thinking that their loved ones could be suffering in hell when they're not. And that leads into the other point, the other issue that I have with these AI-generated channels. Now maybe there's some that are not Christian, but all the ones that I've seen are from a fundamentalist Christian perspective. And it's almost like it's this backlash of the fundamentalist Christian community trying to get a foothold in the NDE space. I have no problem with legitimate channels, again, like Randy K, who chooses to just interview Christian NDEers because that's his worldview. I personally wouldn't do that. I don't think it is a truthful representation of what's actually happening on the other side, but that's his choice. Everybody knows he's a Christian channel. He's going to interview Christian NDEers. But most of us in the mainstream NDE community understand that there are a small handful of fundamentalist Christian NDEs. Some of them, in my opinion, are made up. After watching and listening to hundreds of these accounts and talking to so many people, sometimes I get the vibe that certain stories are being made up to push an agenda. But we know there's a handful of fundamentalist Christian NDEs out there. They are definitely in the vast minority. If we have these AI channels that are creating mass quantities of fundamentalist Christian NDE accounts and putting them out there, and like you saw, there's hundreds of thousands of views on some of these videos, people are taking them seriously. It's really detracting from the powerful simplicity of the NDE message that it's all about love. It's not about religion. And it's really sad to see because the NDE community as a whole has fought to get the message out there, to break away from fundamentalist religion and get the message out there that NDE stories as a whole do not support fundamentalist religion. The real live NDE experiencers who have done the hard work of putting themselves out there, sharing their story, facing ridicule, losing family and friends over sharing their story, is disrespectful to them for people to be creating fake content that is undisclosed, that is pushing a fundamentalist religious agenda. Having said that, I do not think that the answer is to use our voice to stand staunchly against something, and in doing so to create more division. I definitely don't think that that is the answer. Again, we live in a world of duality. So the more that we feed into what we stand against, the more power it will grow. I think that what we need to do in the NDE community is to just stand strong in our love, our peace, stand in the truth of the stories that we're sharing and keep our focus there, rather than diverting energy towards criticizing and stressing about what other people are doing and things that we can't control. And I also think that this is a lesson that humanity has to learn the hard way with the path that we've gone down of advanced technology and AI. Anytime we share the truth or the light or the goodness, the shadow side of that will rear its head. And that's what's happening now. I think that putting out the information is crucial, but let's not put our focus on the negativity and pulling down other people. Just be aware of what's happening, report the channel if you feel called to do so, and keep your consciousness and your energy centered in truth, in love, in peace. What I'm calling for here is awareness, discernment, without getting emotionally entrained in what's happening. If you want to report these channels, I'll show you how. So you go to the main page of the channel, you click more, click report user again. The easiest way to do this is spam and scams. They want you to pick which videos are scams. Just click a bunch of them, click next. And then you can put in some details here. This channel is creating AI content and not marking it as AI content. Submit. And if enough of us do that, maybe some of these channels will get shut down. But again, the ultimate goal isn't to be against these channels and to push back against them and fight against them and get them shut down. It's just to be aware. It's to be aware. It's to not fall for it. It's to intentionally support the channels who have put in the work. And the guests who are legitimate, like the real people who want to share their stories. There are countless real NDE channels out there that deserve to get a lot more views than these fake AI channels are and don't, because it takes a lot more work, more effort and time to actually do the real work rather than posting fake content. So, I mean, I can give you some names of people that I have so much admiration and respect for that you would be better served watching. Okay, here's a few channels that I watch. Spiritual Warrior Journey, 3,000 subscribers. Magic is Real by Shannon Torrance. She's been doing this for years and she deserves a lot more subscribers. She's so passionate about what she does. Guy Lawrence does fantastic work. Wisdom from North. I absolutely love Yannicka. I consider her a friend. We've spoken on multiple occasions. She's been working on her channel, I believe, for 10 years or more. I mean, she has put in the work and she puts out some fantastic content. And of course, Jeff and Mara from the Jeff Mara podcast. Jeff was my first friend and colleague in the NDE space. He does NDEs, but he's also more in the paranormal range and is so passionate about his work. Has worked so hard. I mean, back when I was doing my first interview with him, which was probably back in 2021. He was putting out an interview per day, him and his wife. And there's so many smaller ones. I mean, there's a lot of smaller NDE channels that only have like maybe a few thousand subscribers that are putting in the work right now and deserve to grow faster than these fake AI content channels that are just growing at the speed of light because they can put out content so fast and it's not even real content. But anyway, thanks for coming to my TED Talk today. This was kind of fun. Let me know in the comments if you like this kind of content. I can definitely do more reaction videos, kind of like switch things up a little bit. Be loved, be happy, be at peace, and go live your most extravagantly loving life. Thank you so much for watching. If you would like to support the channel, we have a few fun ways that you can do that. I do have a merch store linked in the description. We've put some of the phrases on t-shirts that you guys requested. I have affiliate links to my favorite blue blockers, my favorite red light panel, and a couple of other companies that I work with. You can join my membership at the Sanctuary. You can sign up for an energy healing. I also offer a 4-session energy healing package. You'll find all these links in the description. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for your support. Now go live your most extravagantly loving life.